Choosing right from wrong. Well, there's so many levels. There's so many levels of right from wrong. So we have on the most basic level our level 1 superficial level. And by superficial, I don't mean less important. I just mean literally the layer on the outside. Right from wrong. So for example, unless you happen to be a doctor committing heart surgery, or conducting heart surgery by sticking a knife in someone's chest, in any other circumstance, stabbing someone is wrong. Stealing is wrong. Yes, we could come up with examples. Bring home food for your child who otherwise would die. But in general, we could all pretty much agree on some rights and some wrongs. Killing is wrong, stealing is wrong. This is where you get your 10 commandments, right? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. So these are sort of agreed upon rights and wrongs. But then you go a layer deeper. Take his question, for example. My dad's an engineer. I'm rephrasing his question, but my dad's an engineer. My uncle's an engineer. Everybody in my family is an engineer. My brother's an engineer. They've always wanted me to be an engineer. I hate math. Cannot do it. I really want to be a musician. Or I really want to take sannyas. I want to be a monk. I want to live in an ashram and shave my head and do seva. Is it right or is it wrong? And of course, there's no right or wrong answer here. But when we talk about dharma, which really is there's so many definitions, but dharma is that which protects us. Literally, the word, when you pull it apart, the pieces of it mean literally dharma is that which protects us, that which holds us together. So if dharma is what holds us together and protects us, we have our universal dharma: integrity, honesty, non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, yes. But then we also have individual dharma. For him to be forced to be an engineer instead of a monk, in my book, is wrong. It's his own dharma. Yeah, and he may decide later on that he wants to be an engineer. He can get back on his engineering path. Who knows? But for us to try to force people according to our vision of right and wrong, to me is not right. Look at people's choices of sexual orientation. There's so many parts of the world where right is a man, a woman. Is it wrong for 2 men, 2 women? I don't think so. It's not my choice. But is it wrong? No, it's just different. Nonetheless, there are a lot of parts of the world where it's not only morally wrong, but it's illegal. I wouldn't say that any government or any society has any right to say what you do behind the closed doors of your bedroom and who you do it with. But this is my opinion. And this is there is no right or wrong answer to these questions of what's right or what's wrong. We can't be the moral police or the karmic police. But inside each of us is our own compass. And it's different from each other. So the monk being forced to be an engineer's brother is an engineer. He loves it. He's been good at math since he was a kid. He's been, pulling apart the clock and the microwave and the blender and putting them back together and since he was a kid. His moral compass, his internal compass, engineer. This one's internal compass, artist, musician, monk. By our own internal compass is the way to know right from wrong. And this is the only way to know. If you can fall asleep at night with the choices that you've made, they're going to be right. Doesn't mean they're easy. Depending on how many people there are in your sphere, how many family members, how many friends, how many colleagues, the choices you make are going to have impacts on them. It's what life is. As an employer, I've got, say, 5 people, room for 1 promotion. 1 person has quit or gotten promoted higher. There's 1 empty spot. I've got 5 people to choose from. 5 different backgrounds, 5 different CVs, 5 different skills and abilities. But I could make a case for any of them being able to fulfill that role. Depending on how you look at it, any of them would be good. Nonetheless, I have to choose 1. It means 4 of them are going to be hurt. 4 of them are going to go home tonight feeling selected against. So making choices in life cannot be based on the fact that no one will be hurt. You can't live like that. Obviously we hurt as few people as we can in as gentle a way as necessary. But you cannot simultaneously marry 2 suitors. You cannot give 1 promotion to 5 people. So whatever choice you make as a parent, you know this. You try to be even, you try to be equal, you try to, make everybody happy, but inevitably there's differences. We try to move through the world, bringing as much peace, as much joy as we possibly can, bringing as little pain as possible. And of course, that's not only in our choices with our loved ones or our workplace, it's in our choices of what we eat. That's one area I actually do feel really comfortable saying right and wrong. I think the meat industry is wrong. I think it's wrong because we are running out of water on Earth, because we're running out of food, because of what's happening with global warming. And we know by United Nations statistics that the meat industry is the single greatest contributor to global warming. We know the way it's pulling food out of the mouths of starving children. That's an area I would say I think it's wrong. Nonetheless, clearly, society and lawmakers don't agree with me enough to either outlaw it or even make it morally reprehensible. But we have choices. What I eat, what I wear, what I buy. Am I one of those shoppers where for me it's about how much can I get for as cheap as possible, which means that the companies I buy from have to employ child laborers and sweatshops in order to fulfill my demand for cheap goods? Or am I going out and insisting on organic and fair trade? Am I living simply so others can simply live, right? There's right and wrong here as well. Again, not a legal one, not even a societal one. Everybody's got their own internal compass. But the choices we make when you start thinking about right and wrong, it really takes us into every moment of our life. And what I have found is that when you begin with things that are relatively easy, by committing yourself to living a life of rightness, and of course it doesn't mean nobody's going to be hurt. There are arguments to be made for the fact that, carrots have feelings. People certainly do, but literally there's now even science evidence that vegetables can feel. So until and unless I can live on air or rocks, you've got to eat something. So you simply choose the least harm. The least harm. Okay, they don't feel it as much as an animal. We know that. They don't have nervous systems developed like an animal. We know that. Similarly, have to wear clothes. They have to be produced somewhere. Production inevitably produces waste. Waste inevitably contributes to pollution. Nonetheless, we don't live in a society where walking around naked is socially acceptable. Have to wear something. But you choose as low on the harm meter as possible. Buy organic, buy fair trade. Buy, simply. And then you move into the rest of the areas of your life. Your relationships with others, your relationship with yourself. Because just as you have a responsibility to others, you have a responsibility to yourself. And this is what we all have our own internal, what Pujya Swamiji calls GPS for. That's what we have to have faith in. Because if he convinces himself to be an engineer just because his brother is, it isn't right. By his dharmic standards. Take the ultimate example, and we'll conclude here, but take the ultimate example. Take the war of Kurukshetra, right? So we could pull that apart and I could say to you, well, tell me, is it right or wrong to wage war on your family members and gurus for a piece of land? Right? By most standards, that would be wrong. If not illegal, at least on a moral and spiritual standpoint, most of us would agree that a piece of land just wasn't worth slaughtering the members of your family or your gurus. And that's the situation that we find ourselves in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, in which Lord Krishna makes it abundantly clear that fighting this war is exactly the right thing to do. Not because slaughter is a good thing, not because it's being done for a piece of land, but for all of the reasons that he gives us in the Bhagavad Gita about fulfilling one's dharma. And, of course, about not being the doer. You're not the slaughterer anyway. Who are you to, kill them? Suddenly you've got divine powers? Of course not. But that war was right, specifically because it had to do with dharma. It was all about fulfilling dharma. And Arjuna was not allowed to do what in most of our books would be the right thing, which was put down his arms, go into the jungle, meditate, and let them keep the land. Because his dharma was a warrior. Universal dharma, non-violence. Arjuna's individual dharma, warrior. Your dharma is to stand up and fight this battle. And so the goal for each of us becomes, how can I connect so deeply inside that the divine voice is in me? Whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, whether it's the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, the Guru Granth Sahib, whatever for me is that internal guiding compass, or no books, just my own internal self. My connection with God of no name, no form, no religion, that's also great. God doesn't insist that you come in a box, but that you connect with that so that you can literally hear the Gita, your own Gita, because of course your Dharma is different than Arjun's Dharma. Nobody could walk out, take a bow and arrow and start killing people and say, well, look, Krishna said to do it. That was Arjun's Dharma at that intersection of time and space. Your Dharma at this intersection of time and space is different. And that's why you need to connect deeply inside to hear that Bhagavad Gita inside. What is your Dharma right here, right now? And you'll know. Because when we're living it, sleep comes much more easily. Our breath comes much more easily. Food digests much more easily. There's an experience of moving through the world. Not that it's easy, but just moving through the world in alignment with that which is right for us. That truth. So, yes, there's a beautiful quotation, I think it's Margaret Mead, who said education, the best education, is not teaching children what to think, but teaching them how to think. And we've gotten a little overemphasized on what to think in our education system, in our culture. And we've stopped teaching people how to think. Because when I know how to think, not just with my mind, but with my heart, well, then I'm going to know how to live. So in our schools and in our lives, let the goal be how to think, not what to think.